Hello, True Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. You're going to love today's interview. It's so beautiful. We get into some beautiful healing of the heart and the mind and the spirit. It's very motivational, uplifting, and deep, and I just think it's so beautiful. I'm really excited to bring you this interview today. I really have some exciting news for those who love the magnesium soak. If you have never heard of this and you're like, what magnesium soak? What are you talking about? Go back and listen to my interviews with Kristin Bowen. You can search them easily by going to learntruehealth.com and searching magnesium, or searching magnesium soak, or searching Kristin Bowen. I have a little search bar at the top of my website, and you can find all my podcasts easily that way. Since this is episode 407, there's 406 other episodes that you can search through and find. My interviews with Kristin Bowen are totally mind-blowing. Just to give you a little snapshot, she was, I think it was 87 pounds or 97 pounds in a wheelchair, having 30 seizures a day, unable to really talk or advocate for herself. That was her lowest point. And I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't heard her story. It's really rad. You have to listen to it. It's pretty crazy. I love how she shares it. So go back and listen to our first interview. But one of her biggest tools was soaking in undiluted magnesium from the Zechstein Sea. Now, we absorb 20 grams of magnesium through our skin when it is delivered this way. You can put it in a foot basin or put it in your bathtub, and people notice such great results. In fact, there's over 2,000 listeners who have purchased the jugs and have used them over the last year and have shared. There's hundreds of testimonials in the Learn True Health Facebook group about the magnesium soak. It's really amazing. Magnesium is the most important mineral in our body. 1,800 processes, enzymatic processes, require magnesium, and it's the first mineral we become deficient in. So things begin to break down. Weird symptoms, headaches, fatigue, hormone disruption, inability to fully metabolize toxins. The list goes on and on. Sleep disruption and muscle aches and pains, and also like restless legs, twitching of your eyelids, twitching of your muscles. These are all symptoms of magnesium deficiency, but there are over 200 symptoms of magnesium deficiency. So I'm not going to list all of them, but you can definitely listen to my interviews with Kristin Bowen to learn more. Now, she offers Learn True Health listeners 10% off of her magnesium soak, which is really generous of her to always give us a bit of a discount. But once in a while, she throws a big special, which is what she's doing right now. From today until January 30th, Kristin Bowen is giving us a jar of her muscle cream, her magnesium muscle cream, which is highly concentrated magnesium in the cream. And it is all natural ingredients. It's very safe. It's non-toxic, and it is my favorite cream. I've used all kinds of, natural pain creams. This one's my favorite. You rub it on your neck if you ever have tension, and the tension melts away. If you ever get a headache, it is so soothing. It really, really, really works. It's a $36 jar, and she's giving it for free as a gift. When you buy a jug of the magnesium soak, you go to learntruehealth.com/free cream. That's learntruehealth.com/free cream from now until January 30th. And then once you hit add to cart, make sure that you use coupon code LTH. That's really important because that makes sure that you get this special and the discount of 10% off. So go to that special link that's only going to work from now until January 30th. And if you're a listener who's listening to this after January 30th, stay tuned because Kristin does specials a few times a year for us. You can get on my email list by going to learntruehealth.com. When there's a big pop-up, put your email in. I promise not to spam you. I send out a few emails a month, usually telling listeners about really awesome specials like the ones that Kristin provides for us. You can also join the Learn True Health Facebook group because anytime Kristin gives us a special, I announce it in the Facebook group as well. So that's a great place to go to stay on top of these great deals. And there's other health companies that let me know about specials. And so I always let you guys know because I love these products. So if you've been a listener for a while, you've heard of the products that I use and that have helped me get to the next level in my health. And I want to make sure that you guys save as much money as possible. So anytime I love these products, I usually reach out to the company and see if I can get a discount. And usually the coupon code is LTH, as in Learn True Health. Speaking of the coupon code LTH, if you've been a listener for a while, you've heard, but if you're a new listener, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. You should totally join our community by going to learntruehealth.com/group or search Learn True Health on Facebook. Be great to have you join our community. I believe we're up to 3,600 members now. It's a very active and supportive Facebook group that loves to talk about holistic medicine, and we'd love to have you there if you're not already there. The coupon code LTH can be used to save a huge percentage when you join the new Learn True Health membership. This is something I've been working on for the last 4 months, and it's something that I've been thinking about for years, actually, and kind of planning it. And then I finally stepped into action, and we've spent the last 4 months filming these wonderful videos. And every week I release new lessons. I'm going to keep growing and growing. But the Learn True Health Home Kitchen membership I designed it with the intention to show you how to cook healthier food and how to increase the amount of nutrition you get from your food. So if you want to save time and save money and save your health and eat food that's healing and delicious and nutrient packed, then join the Learn True Health Home Kitchen. You don't have to give up your meat. You don't have to, if you want to stay paleo, if you want to stay like whatever you're doing, my goal is to teach you how to eat more whole foods and more plants. Now, if you want to go 100% whole food plant-based and eat this very nutrient-dense cleansing diet, I give you the tools for how to do that. And if you just want to add more wonderful fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains and legumes into your life, you're going to learn how to do that as well. We are dairy-free, gluten-free, and we do teach how to avoid allergens. We also teach how to make healthy food for kids, because I have a small child, and Naomi, who's my friend who we've been filming all these wonderful videos with, she has 3 boys. We also have husbands, and so we have many palates that we have to figure out how to provide delicious but healthy foods for. And we do that in their whole food, so there's no processed food, there's no chemicals. And you know what? It's pretty amazing that even the pickiest of children are loving these recipes. So we teach you how to feed the masses, feed your children, feed your families, and feed yourself healthy whole foods, and also learn how to cook more efficiently. So you're saving time, you're saving money. I can't believe how much money I've saved actually since I started cooking all my meals at home and then packing and taking meals out with me instead of buying food when I'm out. I'm saving a ton of money, but I'm also saving a lot of time because I figured out how to cook in a way that saves time, because I'm busy like you. And wouldn't we like to all eat 3 really healthy meals a day that are delicious, that didn't take us a lot of time to cook, and then notice that the health results come, that you have more energy, that you have more mental clarity, that you jump out of bed, that you notice aches and pains have gone. Naomi's mom shares a great story in one of our videos. Her arthritis is gone after eating this way for, I believe she ate this way for 6 or 7 weeks and then was like, wow, my arthritis is totally gone. All my pains are gone. My aches and pains are gone. That's the kind of wonderful thing that happens when people add more plants to their life. It's detoxifying, it's nutrifying, it's anti-inflammatory. So there's wonderful things you can learn. Please go to learntruehealth.com/home kitchen. Use coupon code LTH to get the big listener discount. Or you could just go to learntruehealth.com, and right there at the top of the menu, it says Home Kitchen, and click there. Awesome. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me in Facebook, in the Facebook group, the Learn True Health Facebook group, or you can email me, ashley@learntruehealth.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you so much for sharing these episodes with your friends. I know you're going to share today's interview because it really touched my heart, and I know it'll touch yours as well. Enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 407. I am so excited for today's guest. We have Kerri Hummingbird on the show. Her website's kerrihummingbird.com. That's easy to remember, Kerri with an I. Of course, links to everything that Kerri does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, so learntruehealth.com. Kerri, I know my listeners are going to love today's interview. This is going to be one of those really positive, uplifting, inspiring interviews. We've had some pretty heavy ones lately, so this is going to be a really nice break to help us to motivate us and release the guilt and the shame and all the negative emotions. Just let it go. You have so many beautiful things to teach us today. I'm just so excited to get started. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for having me on. I'm really looking forward to providing as much as I can in service to your listeners.
Absolutely. Before we get started, because we talked a little bit before we hit record, and you're going to teach us so many beautiful things about opening to being present to the flow, where your brilliance is, where connection is made, and letting go of that mind chatter, the negative self-talk, and also discussing the idea of your identity around your diagnosis, because we really do take on this idea that we are broken, and letting that go and reinventing what our identity is to see that we are whole, complete, and perfect. And there's so many studies showing that your mindset is directly related to your ability to heal or your ability to hold on to illness. So I love that you're going to help us to shift our mindset into a healing and really just beautiful, peaceful, joyful place. Before we get started, though, learning about that, I'm really curious, what happened in your life that led you to become an expert in this area, teaching us how to transcend the human drama?
Absolutely. Well, I actually find it ironic because I guide people now on their journeys through their psychology, through their consciousness, and I do it in an alternative way. I do it in a spiritual way. But that's not how I started the journey. I actually began the journey through exploring my own psychology, sitting on the couch in weekly psychotherapy sessions. I did that for decades trying to fix myself from this idea that I was broken, that there was something wrong with me that was making me unacceptable to the people that were closest to me, that was making me need to work on myself to be better around them. And while some of that was true, there was definitely some self-mastery to learn around how to handle emotional energy, for example. There was also just a lot of misunderstanding that I experienced in the psychology field around different personal types, different types of people, and how they process life experience, and maybe even the tools and practices that would support people in better processing their life experience so that they don't have the sort of behavior that would then get characterized or diagnosed in the various ways that are out there. So at the end of the 20 years, at the beginning of the 20 years was when I was 15, I had been acting out as, I don't know, most teenagers do. And in this case, my mom got really scared because I did what many teenagers today are doing, is that I was doing some self-harm. And the self-harm that I was doing was dating a lot of boys and really not respecting or honoring myself. And that was leading me to feel pretty bad about myself. I'm sure you've got some listeners who understand that process, budding sexuality in this culture and trying to figure out who you are. And my experience was also triggered by my early childhood. So I think you probably talk about in this show a lot as well, early childhood experience and how that affects your mental paradigm and your mental conditioning and the kinds of things that come up and surface in your life. And I believe now they come up for healing. So I had an early experience at 15 of that, where I felt so low about myself when my dad walked in and caught me at home with a boy. that I was, being sexual with. And I had such incredible shame about that, not only just in the moment, but it triggered a lot of other things from my history. And I ended up feeling so bad about myself, and my dad not wanting to talk to me and wanting me to kind of stay in my room and while he processed what happened, that I ended up taking a whole bottle of Tylenol with codeine.
Oh.
And yeah, I ended up going to the hospital to have my stomach pumped. And that was the result of that was my first entry into the psychology field, where I had a really excellent psychiatrist, actually, which back in the day, psychiatrists spoke to you, and tried to help you understand yourself. It wasn't about medicine and medication. And he was the first person who started to help me to understand my psychology and the emotional energy that I was processing and what I was doing with it that wasn't in service of myself. So there was a long journey of that. And as helpful as it was to see this man, it also planted a seed that there was something wrong with me, because he gave me a diagnosis. He said, we're going to call you manic depressive. And I would call you bipolar, but I don't want to put that on your record. Almost like, uh-oh, like you're really broken inside. It gave me that idea, and it triggered a lot of fear in my mom. And so that began a set of stories about me, that there was something really, really wrong with me. And my mom could instantly see that there were things from my early childhood that were very traumatic that could be responsible for making me broken. So it started this whole path. And I, while I am very gifted by everything I've learned on that journey, thoroughly, deeply exploring thought tunnels, and self-shame and guilt and all of those things. At the end of the day, what I clearly see now is that labeling people with a diagnosis gives them some temporary sense that they understand what's happening to them, but it also can trap them like a spider traps a fly in a web. It can be very damaging to a person's psychology to have those kinds of things happen. So the long story short is, after decades of psychotherapy, it wasn't getting better, because what am I doing? I'm going into the office and I'm telling my story, and I'm just telling the latest version of how I'm broken, because the universe keeps sending me more of that, right?
Because that's your filter. That's your belief system about yourself.
That's my belief system, and it's being reinforced at home. And with my mom, who has a lot of fear and guilt over the early childhood trauma. So it's just a story that gets perpetuated. And then I self-perpetuate. And, then I chose a partner who shared a lot of the same, personality traits as my mother. So I just brought more of the same to me for 20 years in that relationship. And with these weekly psychotherapy sessions, basically saying, I'm responsible for all the problems in the family. It's all me. It's me. I'm causing all the problems. And that is not sustainable for a person. Like, no person can carry the weight of that their entire life and feel good about themselves. Those two don't go together. So the culmination of that story is that at the very end of all of that paradigm, the diagnosis was I was borderline personality disorder. And I can tell you, when I looked it up on Wikipedia back in circa 2009 or something, it wasn't a very friendly description. It was sort of like, you're like Glenn Close, in that movie Boiling a Rabbit, in her boyfriend's home. It was not very kind, and it wasn't true either, but I couldn't see it then. I didn't have the self-awareness or the belief in myself, because the story was so strong that I was broken and I was the problem in my family, that I didn't see it. So it really took me deciding, ironically enough, to be bad, to say, well, then I guess I'm just bad. If after all this time I'm still broken and you can't fix me, and this is the only method you have to fix me, then I guess I'm just going to be bad. And I left my marriage and I walked out. And that first night in my new house, I felt instantly better. It was like relief. I'm not going to try that anymore. I'm just done with that. So really, really quickly, what happened, this is the turning point that I really hope the listeners hear. What happened was I stopped believing the authorities about me. And I started opening to something bigger that was inside of me. And I switched from judgment to curiosity. And when I got into curiosity, like, I wonder what my life might be like without all this judgment. I ended up getting some spiritual teachers that helped me guide along that path. And I started finding out about all kinds of alternative healing, which I also know you explore in this show, which is so exciting. Alternative healing, spiritual healing, energy healing. These were things that I had no concept of before. And yet that was exactly the pathway that I got to feeling love within myself, which has been about an 8-year journey now, from the end of my marriage and the rock bottom and the, I guess I'll just, go off in a corner and die, to here where I'm on your show and I'm serving as an inspiration to people.
I love it. So when did you first move into your house, your new house, after leaving your husband and walking away from the stories that it's like you're walking out of this jello that you were living in, where it's like everything was reinforcing this old belief about you, and you walk out of it and now you're in your new life, switching from judgment to curiosity. When was that? How many years ago was that?
That was 2011 in the summer.
And since then you have been on this journey of curiosity. I love that you said from judgment to curiosity, because it's in the question. It's staying in the questions that allow us to stay open and gather more information and go deeper. It's when we stop asking the questions that we really shut ourselves off from possibility. So you were like, what would happen if, can you give me some examples of some of the first thoughts that you had that allowed you to dive into curiosity? Some of the first
Well,
questions?
I think I'll just go to a metaphor of dieting, because I'm sure that a lot of listeners can relate to the idea of dieting. So in my experience of dieting, if you restrict yourself and you continue to restrict yourself in a punitive way, what ends up happening is sooner or later you bust open the cookie bag and you eat them all. Like, you just can't do it anymore. You just can't force yourself anymore to punish yourself into compliance with some goal that you have. So in the same way, just expand that metaphor into all aspects of your life. And that's what I was experiencing. I had so restricted myself through punishment in this belief that I was broken and I was the problem. I was walking on so many eggshells inside of myself that I was apologizing for my existence at every turn. And that led to a place where I felt so bad about myself that any little bit of attention I got from anybody, I would just go for it. So, at the end of my marriage, I was cheating on my husband because men were looking at me and they were attracted and it felt good. And it was the only thing that felt good. And so I went for it because I'm starving. I'm starving for love. I'm absolutely starving for love, and I need to fill my cup. And so when I decided to be bad, I filled my cup for a while. I had a lot of men on text and getting really full on the attention and like, okay, yeah, this feels really good. And then, but it wasn't very long. It was about 6 months until I got connected with yoga, and I went to my first yoga class. And my yoga teacher was really cool, of course, because I needed it to be cool. He had hair down to his hips. He played Led Zeppelin for vinyasa. And I was like, now this is my style. Like, I can do this. And pretty soon I got curious about him, and I thought, his website says he's a spiritual counselor. Well, I wonder if that's different than psychology, because I'm not going back to a psychotherapist. So not to blame psychotherapists, because I know the field has changed a lot, but the ones that I had been seeing were keeping me in my story. They weren't breaking me out of it. And I knew I needed something, but I knew I didn't need that. And so he met with me, and we had a session together. And I said, can you help me? And he said, yeah, I think I can. So the first session we had together, I went in like I had gone into every other psychotherapy session in my life. I went in and I started complaining about the person that wasn't giving me what I needed. And then I felt bad about myself, and it was all their fault. And I went into that story, and he stopped me. He interrupted the pattern And he said, "That's you." And I, what? I mean, I felt so insulted at first, but I knew it was true. It was like he was speaking truth and it hurt, but it went right to my heart and it made me wake up. And I said, "Oh my God, how do I stop doing that?" And that's where the journey really began. The question, how do I stop doing that? Because I don't want to do that anymore. And what is that? And why am I doing that? And where's that come from? All these questions started in my consciousness. And pretty soon I got led to the next teacher and the next teacher. And then I had a shamanic spiritual healing. And that woke me up big time because I thought I was one thing. I thought I was this solid thing called Kerri. Like there was just one thing. And when I was in the middle of this healing session, I realized, oh my gosh, there's like multiple aspects of me. There's energy that can be taken out and I can feel it being removed. And I can feel it go over there in the burning sage and it disappears. And I'm here and this is more true. So what is all that stuff in me that's cluttering up me? That's not me. What is that stuff? It's like I instantly had this awareness that I was filled up with a bunch of gunk that was not my true self, that it was a bunch of stuff. I didn't know what it was, but it was gunk and it was cluttering me. And I had that instant knowing of that. And I felt different after 45 minutes. He took this energy out of my heart that had been there since my whole life, that always felt like the only way I can describe it really is a menstrual cramp, but like around my heart, like it would ache. Mm-hmm. Anytime I thought somebody hated me or didn't like me or they looked at me funny or I felt inadequate or I was like reviewing my past performance of something at work and my heart would ache. And he took it out. It's gone. I never had that feeling since. He just removed it. So, I mean, I thought, wow, 45 minutes and that can happen. I'm doing that. I don't care what that is. I'm learning how to do that. And that's what started me really on my path to becoming what I am today.
Oh, so cool. I've had that experience before. My first time doing an NLP session with someone back in 2004, 2005. I did a NLP breakthrough sessions, about 8 hours long, and we did timeline therapy. She also did some Huna work, which is the Hawaiian spiritual practice. So she does like the energy work, but it was NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis. We did this whole session, and I walked out of there feeling like I felt weight lifted off my shoulders that I had carried most of my life. I walked around with this weight, this heaviness pushing down on me physically I could feel it. And after the session, I physically felt it removed. It was just taken off my shoulders. That was also when I completed my grieving. I was in depression and grief from losing my mother 2 years before. And I was seeking, so I went to all kinds of therapists because I was seeking how to grieve healthfully. And what I really saw in the therapy field is, at the time, every therapist I went to, it was either you are broken or you're normal. You're either abnormal or you're normal. And there was no focus on let's strive for excellence. Because I wanted to grieve in the healthiest way possible. I wanted to achieve like excellence around grieving. And there was no like, all right, let's make you like the most excellent human griever. Let's like, do it in the most healthy way. No, it was like you're either broken and abnormal or you're normal and you don't have to come here anymore. And I thought that was really interesting. So when I learned more about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that they designed it, that Richard Bandler and John Grinder back in the 60s and 70s originally designed it out of this exact same observation that they saw that in the therapy field in the United States, which, is culturally, the people in the United States are always striving to be the best. It's kind of, that's part of the American dream, strive for absolute excellence. Achieve the maximum, be the best, basketball player you can be the best, trader on Wall Street you can be, whatever it is, be the best cyclist you can be, or the runner. In those fields, that's sort of considered normal to want to be the best that you can and go and find a coach to help you be the best you can. But when it came to mental health, that wasn't the perception back in the 60s and 70s. It was either you're normal or you're abnormal. And there was zero focus on excellence, on achieving excellence around emotional and mental health. It wasn't a thing. And so they created neurolinguistic programming to bring about a tool set that had people not just throw out that old system of you're either broken or you're normal. We don't need to put ourselves in that box. We don't need to live in that story. Instead, we're all human beings, and let's create the most excellent experience we can, excellent emotional and mental health we can. It's a bunch of tools basically that you can learn to help you be in your excellence. And so I dove into that, and actually then out of that experience, I said that my first night walking out, feeling like that weight was lifted off me, that was taken out of me and off me. I said, I have to learn how to do this. And so I went and took all the trainings and became a master practitioner and trainer of NLP and timeline therapy and hypnosis. And I thought that was that was for me, that was like a whole world opened up. And I couldn't believe that, just like you, this whole world opens up and you're like, I've been in therapy for 20 years. And now it's like, why didn't someone tell me about this? That there's spiritual healing and mental healing on a whole new level. So you broke free from this old system. But I love that you had the really solid experience of both systems, because I am sure that therapy is very effective for people. And, you have to sort of find the right tool for you, right? Find the right tool for the job. Some people really thrive in seeking out Freudian therapy, 200 hours on the couch, and that's what they needed. Other people need behavioral psychology or cognitive therapy. And then you get to that point where you want to break free from the stories, and you want to transform how you relate to yourself, how you relate to the world, and switch over from judgment to curiosity. And I love that. I love that you had that very clear transition. It's really beautiful. So now you have broken free. How do you go back though to the people in your life who still relate to you as the old Kerri? How do you transform how people relate to you?
Well, so that's a very good question. And the answer is that everyone is sovereign. Every person is sovereign. And as such, every person's really responsible for their own perceptions and the stories they choose to tell. And sometimes those stories they choose to tell, they like to hold on to for a lot of reasons. So let's just explore that topic for a second. So in my case, the story that my closest people like to tell was that I was responsible for all the problems in the family.
That's
a pretty convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody wants to change that story but me. Okay. So that's really, that's been one of the major hurdles in my life, is that I've gotten the opportunity to heal myself all the way down to the core identity. And if you think about it, your parents, your mother gives you your core identity, because that's the one whose body you were birthed in. That's the one who was nurturing you and caring for you. And that's the person whose opinion you really care about the most as a little child. Like, you really want your mommy to love you. That's just all of us do. And when that isn't possible in the way that you need it, then the opportunity is to learn how to give that to yourself. And so the body of work that I'm working on right now is called Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound. And so the work I've been doing in private with clients is healing that last vestige of doubt inside that you're worthy of love, that comes from a lot of ideas in our heads, a lot of information that comes in the form of not necessarily words, but just feelings and sensations and perceptions and even psychic knowings about how our mother feels about us and about herself. And that really impacts our psychology, especially as a woman. I know that boys are also affected by that, because I am a mother and I had a mother wound and I passed it on to my sons. And as soon as I've become aware of this, I've been doing everything I can to help them to assert their own identity and to have a really strong knowing that their mom's okay. Like, there's there's just so many psychological uncertainties that get kicked up when you as a child perceive a number of things. Like if you perceive that your mom's irritated by you, if you perceive that you're not really wanted, if you perceive that you're a nuisance, if you perceive that that your mom's not okay, that she's got emotional problems, or she doesn't seem to be able to show up for you. There's a lot of ways that this presents itself, but all of that stuff, it gets in the way of you knowing that you're okay inside of you. Like you actually don't feel okay because of it. And sometimes, like you said, like how do you deal with your family who wants to keep telling the same story about you? There are family systems that get constructed around this entire dynamic to hold it in place. And so when you start rocking the boat and trying to change it, what happens is pushback.
Yep.
Because if you change, everybody else in the ocean has to change. If you change the story, they either have to clutch their story tighter or they have to meet you part way and start seeing something new. And a lot of people, if you change, that means something in the dynamic has changed and now they own some piece of it.
It's
So
like
that's
enforcing healthy
definitely
boundaries. You've got to.
Yeah, healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Like you don't tell me who I am. And I could never, here was the crux of my issue my whole life, and I'm only now breaking free because it's a really deep wound. And it's like there's a splinter that gets placed inside your consciousness really young if you're having this kind of situation like I experienced. And then a whole bunch of layers and stories and stuff, authenticates it. And then it gets bigger and bigger and the crust around it grows. And pretty soon, you can't even decide, should I choose option A or B? I'm not sure about myself. I don't know which one to pick. We don't even know what we want or how to direct our way through life. We're so out of touch with ourselves that, we just don't know what to do. And so this is about identity. It's about identity and about reclaiming identity and deciding that nobody can tell you who you are, not even your mother. Nobody can tell you who you are, and that you are safe in becoming curious and exploring who you really are and letting yourself do that. And along the path of doing that, I faced all kinds of things like mysterious feelings of being choked, like body sensations. I mean, just old memories in my body, all kinds of fears that came up about speaking. When I started speaking on podcasts, all these fears came up. I would start having really unconscious self-sabotaging behavior because I knew I was telling on mom, and that was really dangerous. There was just a lot of things that came up for me that were true for me as a little child, but are totally not true for me as an adult. And so this is really the process of becoming a mature person and owning the psychology inside of you and taking ownership of becoming your own mother, taking ownership of becoming your own father, and really guiding your own life and giving yourself permission to be who you are and who you choose to be, no matter what anybody else says about you, even if they're your closest people and they're your family. It's that deep.
You said that no one else can determine or can say who you are. I would take it one step further and say even your belief systems don't have the right to tell you who you are, because they're
the conditioning.
The old belief systems, the old conditioning comes from the decisions that we made as children. When something happened, like we got spanked and we decided that we're not loved, or we got yelled at because we did something as a child and we decided we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not smart, we're not beautiful, we're fat, we're ugly, we're unwanted. Like all these unconscious limiting decisions that we built as our identity and that become our filters in life that don't let us see. That's how the unconscious mind works. It's how the brain works in forming our reality. Our unconscious limiting decisions are the filters that will negate positive information It's called the reticular activating system. It's a filter in the unconscious in the near the brainstem, and it won't let us see things that go against our belief system. So if I believe I'm not loved and Kerri says, Ashley, I love you, my brain won't accept it. I will make a decision. Either I'll ignore it, I won't hear it until it's we delete, distort, and generalize. I'll delete it entirely. We won't even hear the person say it. Or I will say in my brain, I'll go, oh, she's just saying that because she wants something, or she's just saying that because she thinks she's being nice, or whatever. Like my brain will negate it because or we won't allow for positive information to come into our conscious and form our reality when we have these filters, and we often then believe that that is reality when it's not.
Hmm.
It is a distorted, it's like looking through a kaleidoscope, but the kaleidoscope is made up of all the negative emotions and limiting decisions that we have been that from our childhood that we've been filtering our life through. So when you said no one has a right to tell you who your identity is, what I got heavily is, and neither does your belief system.
Neither, yeah, you have to become aware of it, which is why it's so important to have presence. Because
Mm.
in presence, things quiet down and we get out of the story. A lot of people are addicted to the story, and I completely understand that. Remember, I spent 20 years telling my story on a couch, so
Mm.
I get it. And that doesn't serve us because, well, let's just say it doesn't serve us if we want to transform and evolve. If we want to stay where we are, it serves us quite well because that's what it does. It keeps us where we are. If we want things to change, then we need to stop believing our story and start becoming curious about it. And also curious, like, is that my story or is that something else? Like, I'll give an example. I had a first stepfather who was very violent and didn't like children, apparently. And that's the story I have about it. And uh, and there was this feeling of not liking kids that got into me, like not liking kids and being playful and boisterous got you in trouble. And so I experienced some of this and throughout my childhood. Well, so then recently I have my own sons, but since I woke up, I would say since I woke up since 2011, and in the last 4 years I've been with my new husband who has two younger children. So I got a chance to revisit some of this. And what I noticed was that as the young children were being very boisterous, I would hear this voice in my head that said, "Damn kids." And I had enough presence of mind to go, wow, where is that coming from? Whereas before it might have just been part of the background noise and I wouldn't even have heard it. I'm sure it was there when I was raising my children because it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Wow, where did that come from? I was so unaware of it before, but it was operating me. It was driving me, and it was part of the conditioning that I had in my brain. So now that I have presence, I heard that voice. I heard it distinctly. And I asked myself, wow, where's that coming from? And I sat with myself for a while until the answer bubbled up. And it kind of bubbles up from inside when you sit with presence. And it was that first stepfather who didn't like kids. And it was made a big impression on me that somehow being a kid was wrong and it was bad and it was annoying and all of these things. So I think that when we have presence, when we're willing to stop telling the story and start listening to ourselves inside, we can learn a lot about what's driving the story we're so emphatic to tell.
Can you teach us how, if we've never had the ability to have presence, how do you start to formulate presence so that we can slow down the self-talk in order to process it, in order to get curious and dive deeper?
Absolutely. Well, there's a number of pathways that I experienced. Yoga was certainly one of them. Working with the breath, putting breath in anything slows things down. You're focusing on breathing. You're focusing on the in breath, the out breath, the way it feels as it goes through your body. And for me, though, I needed a little bit more than that because I had a very chattery mind. It was really super chattery. And I was not really able to sit and meditate. People kept saying, oh, well, just sit and meditate and you'll quiet down. And I thought, no, I sit and meditate and it gets louder. Like there's a lot of noise in there and it's uncomfortable and I can't sit still and I don't like being with all that. So for me, what I ended up doing was learning about shamanic drumming, which is the interesting thing about drum journey music is that the ancient people always knew that certain beats of the drum actually stimulate your brain to go into a different state of mind. A trance, if you will, activates a different frequency in your brain, a different, instead of it being beta, which is super busy, 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 it activates theta state and alpha state, which are more relaxed. And the theta state is more of a dreaming state. You can even access gamma state, which is pretty cool. That's where you have transcendent visions. But the drum beat and working with the drum actually really helped me to ground myself in my body and to quiet my mind. And I was able to start having visions even and information. And so you build on what you have. So any little tiny little wiggle space of quiet that you have, whatever worked to get that, you just keep doing more of that and building out that space and sort of building that muscle of quiet within you where you can listen and receive. And the more you work on that muscle, the greater the muscle gets. All of my training in energy healing, I got certified from the Four Winds Light Body School of Energy Medicine. And a lot of that training has to do with listening to the client, listening to their energy field and what's messages are coming up. What are you feeling in your body empathically from their body and their experience? There's a lot of listening. And after all of this training and all these working with clients and channeling information for them, I started channeling in groups and it opened up in front of a lot of people. And now I wrote a book last year that the whole book was channeled. Like I literally sat down, didn't think at all. The words just came out and I just channeled it. And that's a flow, and I found that that's brilliant. I mean, my friends are like, oh, that book is brilliant. And I'm like, thank you. And I did, it's like, I feel like I didn't do it because I just channeled it, but actually in a way I did it because I was able to get quiet, right? I was able to open myself up to let the flow come through, that flow that's tapped into all that is. So I hope that answers your question, but I feel like it's a muscle. You got to exercise it every day. And the more you exercise it, the better you get at it. And then miraculous things can happen like I experienced.
If you didn't consciously write the book, then who wrote the book?
I feel like it was my higher self, my guide. For that book, I feel like, everyone has their own belief systems around this, but I really believe that we are souls having a human experience, and the human part, the ego part, can be really delicious in the fact that it gets to have all these experiences that feel really real and gets to feel pain and excitement and suffering, and also gets to have a lot of chattering mind and thoughts and gets to, feel and create. And there is another aspect of us, though, that is really timeless, eternal, wise, connected to all that is. And I would call that the soul. And when we can do a dance with the soul so that, us, the personality self and the soul self can be together in one consciousness in one moment in the now, together in the now, then amazing things can happen that as a personality self, there's no way I could have done that. Like the book I wrote, I just don't see that happening in the time frame that it happened, with the ease and grace it happened, without the dance of my soul. The dance of my soul is what manifested that into being. It's my willingness to listen. And it's just amazing every time I let it out. If I just did a weekend I got the opportunity to do a weekend presentation at the Evolutionary Business Council, and I decided to do that in the presentation. Just let go. Don't script it. Just let go. So I let go of, I had written the speech, I'd written everything, and I tossed it out. And I just said, okay, and my soul I call White Eagle. And so I said, okay, White Eagle, take it and run with it. Let's do this. And it was amazing. Like it was like, whoa. And everybody was engaged, and everybody, took action, and they all were like, yes, this is exactly right. Because when I step into that space, which I've been practicing in my healing sessions and with clients and groups, when I step into that space of the flow and of my soul, like brilliance comes out, right? Like it's pretty awesome to experience, because that part of you is wise and eternal. Like they know everything. So I don't know. That's just my experience of it. It's amazing. It's profound.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't think everyone does. In the training that I've done with becoming an NLP trainer, and even before that with Landmark Education, you get to a place where you create so much peace inside yourself that you let in NLP we call it generate. You just generate. So you could stand there and just start talking, and it's coming from this very pure place inside you where
Yes.
you don't have to think about it before you say it. You don't have to plan. You don't even necessarily know what you're going to say until you start saying it. And it's so brilliant. The brilliance that comes out comes from this very beautiful, authentic place inside you. Like it's not ego. And you definitely feel connected to God. You feel connected to spirit, your soul. You feel grounded. You feel very grounded, but at the same time, you don't feel like, you just start to feel like you're phasing, your energy is vibrating on a little bit of a different wavelength. Like you're not here present. You feel a little bit like you're high.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
So high.
you're a little high. And it's just because you're going in your brain is in a different wavelength, and it's really beautiful. I love it. And this is something that I don't think about. I just do, but I developed it over years and years and years working with Landmark, and then in NLP and being an NLP trainer, and then doing this podcast. When I first started the podcast, it was so funny. I was nervous. I was like studying and writing down 20 questions and worrying, do I have enough questions to write down? And within like the first maybe 10 episodes, I was scripted. I have my questions and I'd ask them. But I soon realized very quickly that I could not do these interviews with questions written down beforehand, because the second they started talking, like my brain would go, oh, what about this? What about that? Let's explore this. And so I ended up, because I realized I wasn't, the interviews weren't this wonderful flow. The flow wasn't there. It was totally cut off because I wanted to script it and ask these questions that were like pre-created. So I had to let go. It was like walking a tightrope and saying, okay, you could take the safety net away now. And I went in blind to the interviews. I went in totally blind, just knowing a little bit about the person and their background, with no questions pre-created. And it was brilliant. And I was so nervous. I'm like, and the thought came to me. It was like, what if I can't think of anything to ask? And it's like, the answer I got was, you just start talking, just start having a conversation and be in the moment with them, be present and generate, and it'll come to you. And so we started to just talk to these people as I interviewed them with no questions written down. And the flow was so different. The energy was so different. It was about being present with them, and the questions would just come from my higher self, would come from somewhere. And so I get it. Like when you're present in the moment and you're listening and you're tapped in, you generate, and it's beautiful creativity, and your identity kind of melts away. You're not in that story anymore, are you?
No, you're not. And that's really the secret. If you want to change your life, is you change the story you tell about yourself. You change your identity. I experienced this over the last 8 years. I mean, 8 years ago, think about it. I was a woman with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. I've been sleeping around on my husband with a lot of strangers at art shows when I was on the weekend doing my art shows. I was, anybody would look at me and say, yep, she's crazy, like pretty much. People might say that about me today, but for a totally different reason. So, and I'm okay with it. So today, I'm on podcasts with people like you who are really, conscious, enlightened leaders trying to help people to see another way. I've got an international bestseller for, 25 weeks now running. It's kind of amazing. It's blowing my mind. All of this stuff is amazing to me. And it happened because I was willing to let go of my identity. I was willing to, I was thankful to let go of it, to be quite honest. I think I got to the bottom of the pit and I said, you know what? I don't want to be whatever I've been being so far, whatever that story is that's creating that. I don't want that. When my yogi said, hey, you're creating this, I looked at him and some deep part of me knew that I was. And I said, yeah, you're right. And I'm going to stop doing that. I got fed up with my story. And I think that, you've got to get fed up with your story to the point where you're willing to change everything in your life just to have a better story. That's the place to be. And then you can create magic. You can really reinvent yourself. There's people, I have really good friends who have had terminal cancer diagnoses, and they've healed themselves through a lot of inner work, a lot of inner work, a lot of treatment options, various combinations of options. But the end being that they did it because they decided they were fed up with the story that they had cancer and they weren't going to go out that way. And they made sure that they healed themselves. One of my friends, stage 5 cancer, like really gonna, that's it, right? That's the last stop. And for the month that before she was supposed to die, she only had like maybe 4 weeks to live or something. She imagined that she was traveling, which was her favorite thing to do. And she made it real. She traveled. Like she couldn't actually go anywhere, but she pretended she was in France. And she made it real for herself. She convinced her brain that she was traveling and enjoying herself in France. And that tumor subsided. She actually lived. She's alive today and she's out speaking about it. So, I know the people who have had these experiences. This isn't like bunk. This is real. Our brains are so powerful, and we have to open to that deep wise one within us in order to change our life circumstances. And to do that, we have to release the identity. We have to release the story about ourselves while we're in the middle of the story, which is super challenging, to release the identity and the story of ourselves while we're still experiencing the effects of the story we've been telling. That's the challenging part, Ashley, isn't it?
I want to interview your friend. Can you hook me up with her information?
I will.
I'm actually crying right now. I'm just in my 20s. I was at a point in my early 20s where I was suffering emotionally. I'd lost my mom. I was in an abusive relationship, an emotionally and mentally abusive relationship, but I didn't know it, because you don't know it when you're in the relationship. You think
you don't know it.
Well, because they're really good at making you think that you're the problem when they're like clearly emotionally and mentally abusive. At my mom's funeral, he pulled me aside and yelled at me for not paying enough attention to him. And I apologized. At my mother's funeral. He made me feel guilty. And I say the word made me feel because now I get that no one can make me feel anything. My languaging back then was he made me feel this way. I get now, I put myself in that position to be in that relationship, and I got out of it. And then I went, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And I started to look back at that whole, 5-6 years, and I realized that it was very emotionally manipulative, emotionally abusive, and a very unhealthy relationship. But at the time, it was like, you can't see the air you're breathing. So at the time, so my early 20s, I was in a very bad place emotionally and mentally, and physically. I had a lot of diseases. And according to the doctors, I was told I'd be on these medications my whole life. I was told I'd never have kids. I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. I had type 2 diabetes. I had chronic adrenal fatigue. I had chronic infections for which I took monthly antibiotics for. I felt like a prisoner in my own body. I couldn't wake up in the morning. I couldn't actually understand human language in the morning. My brain could not process human language. I was so broken. I felt so broken. Every morning I woke up with a hangover, although I did not drink alcohol because of my physical state was so sick. So I'd wake up every morning with all the symptoms of a hangover, feeling like I partied the entire night, although I didn't. And I only started to feel normal in the evenings and that's because my cortisol levels were so extremely low that they just started to creep up in the evenings. And then it was hard to get to bed at night because that's when I actually started to have my brain back and started to have energy. So, and I was eating the standard American or standard Canadian diet and in a bad place emotionally, but I was trying to get out of it. And I was living in the identity that I was diabetic. I was living in the identity that I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I am infertile, or whatever the identity that the doctors diagnosed me with. The diagnosis becomes an identity. And at first, and you said this earlier, at first the diagnosis is a relief. There's this feeling of relief that washes over you when you, after months or years of suffering, you're finally given this label, because then it's like, look, people are acknowledging my internal suffering. I'm not crazy. They see it. This label proves that my suffering is real, and others can finally get that it's real. But then it becomes the cage that we live in.
Yes, it becomes a cage. It's exactly right. It's like I realized in my case, and I don't know how you feel about yours, but that I realized I was the spider spinning the web around myself. I was the spider, the web, and the fly. So, like
you're
it was
everything.
a closed system. Yeah, I'm doing it to myself, and so it took a long time to unweave and unwire that. But the first decision was, no matter what it takes, I don't care. Whatever it takes, I'm going to be what I really want to be. And so I said, well, what do I really want to be? So I picked the first thing that inspired me. So this is another little tip, pick the first thing that inspires you, because that's probably true. Like, inspiration is true. I believe inspiration is true. And for me, it was a vision I had. It was my first mystical vision. I was doing a drum journey meditation with my drum in my little apartment I was renting, and I was manifesting my home that I currently live in now. I wanted to buy this home, and my real estate agent had said, well, they're already under contract and they've been back and forth a couple times, and usually, almost always in that case, you're not going to get the house. And I said, no, I know that's my house. So I did this drum journey and I started visualizing, okay, I'm in my house. I'm in my house. I'm in my house. And I saw myself in there, and I saw my grandparents who have deceased. I saw them come and visit in the house, and we were talking about how beautiful it was. And I was making the whole thing up in my brain, imagining it, until the very end, when I'm standing in the house in my dream, in my vision, looking in the kitchen, looking out the back window. And all of a sudden, a rainbow light hummingbird whoosh in the back window and hovers there, and space expands. And all I could do is just go, wow. Like, I'm not making that happen. That's amazing. What is that? I love that. Oh my God. It's a rainbow hummingbird. Wow. And as soon as I stopped the drum journey, because that was just the phone rang. And it was my real estate agent. And she said, oh, the deal fell through, so they want your offer. You can have the house. So that really inspired me, Ashley. I got to say, that was a mystical vision experience. And I thought, okay, what does hummingbird mean? So I looked it up in the animal guide and, animal spirits. What does that mean? I had learned about animal spirits. I didn't know about it before, 8 years ago. But I looked up this guide and I said, okay, hummingbird. And everything it said, anything is possible. Yes, I've always known that. I've always known inside of me that anything is possible. There's this part of me that was so fiercely knowing that. And, that's what got me through all this hellacious, sitting in psychotherapy for 20 years, is I knew that anything was possible. I knew that it didn't have to be this way. And so I kept looking for the answer to solve the problem, because I knew that that wasn't the way my life had to be. So I thought, yes, that's me, hummingbird and messenger of spirit. Yes, I open to that. Yes, I want that. So really shortly after that, I started calling myself Kerri Hummingbird. And I even changed it on social media, which at first was really awkward, because my friends were saying, "What are you doing? What is that?" But then people started saying, "You know what, Kerri, that really is you. That is you. That's more true. That's actually more true than the last name you had. That's true for you." So it became my truth. And so what I did was I created this vision board about Kerri Hummingbird, and I put it on my wall, and I just kept looking at that. And anytime I had a challenge, I would ask myself, well, what would Kerri Hummingbird do about that? How would Kerri Hummingbird respond to that? It's like I was tapping into this more true aspect of myself, this future self even. You could even think of it that way. Tapping into the future person I am today and saying, Kerri Hummingbird, what would you do right now? Because I'm not quite you yet, but I want to be you.
Oh, I love
and what
that.
do I want to be? Is I want to be me. I was trying to be me the whole time, but I had to find me underneath all that crap that got placed on me by all the conditioning and all the stories that I told and all the stories that everybody else told, all the story, which is why I say presence and inspiration. That's the place to be.
Oh, I love that. I have this technique I learned from who knows where I learned this from. I've been one of my passions since I was a teenager has been personal growth and development. So I picked this up somewhere, but this idea that when you set a goal, so for me, because I'm hitting the gym pretty hard this year with my husband. And, I really dialed in my diet in the last 2 years. I'm really, really happy with the nutrition, the quality of the nutrition my body's getting. And I decided I want to sculpt my body. In a different way, in a really healthy way. But I've finally figured out what I want to look like and what I want to feel like in my body. So we're going to the gym with this very specific intention. I found some really great videos on YouTube. And we're following like these exercises I've never seen before. It's really cool. Actually, today at the gym, someone came up to us and said, he's 76 years old. He goes, I've been working out my whole life. I've never seen that exercise. It looks really neat. Like, how did you figure that out? And so we're doing some fun things in the gym. But what I learned is you imagine your goal. So let's say, Ashley, a year from now, I'm imagining my goal and the person I create myself to be a year from now after, spending 365 days in the gym, for example. And I stand there in my mind in the future Ashley. And then what I do is I look back to now. So having achieved my goal, I stand there in my body, my newly sculpted body, having achieved the goal, looking back to now. And I see all the steps I had to take to get here. And so it's similar to what you're saying, is like, talk to your future self, talk to the person you are. Ask like, what would future Ashley, say? The Ashley that's like hit the gym and sculpted her body. What would she say? She'd be like, get out of bed at 7:30. Let's go. What are you doing? So when I am in doubt, what do I do? What do I do here? I start asking myself, what would like rock hard ab Ashley say?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, so this is really cool, because basically everybody can see that in any moment you have choice A or choice B, and maybe even choice C, right? And so you could predict that there's one Ashley in the future that didn't do any of that stuff.
Yes.
But there's another Ashley that totally did do all that stuff. So you want to tap into the Ashley that did all the stuff in order to become the person you want to be, right? And then, yeah, exactly. Ask her, well, what were the choice points? What were the choice? Because we can't, part of manifestation is doing exactly what you did, imagining yourself in the future point as if it's now, having accomplished exactly everything you want to accomplish, feeling what you're going to feel, knowing it happened. How does it feel receiving all of that? How does it feel, that accomplishment feeling? You know, what are the things going on in your brain? Who are you being in order to be that person? All of that is really real. It manifested. It plants a seed. But we actually also, you've got to take the actions, you know? So it's not just about dreaming it. It's about becoming it through action. So I love that you said you look back and say, okay, what were all the actions I took, you know, in order to get to that place that I'm standing at now?
Right. Because I think the new age gets a bad rap because it's like, oh, you can't just imagine yourself into wealth or health. You can't just, but that is the first step. You have to shift your belief system. And that's what I had to do when I was suffering. There was this moment that occurred around 2004 for me. And I was sitting at home suffering like I had every day, emotionally, mentally, physically, trapped in a prison of illness. And there was a moment where I had this realization, and it was actually watching What the Bleep Do We Know, which I think everyone needs to watch twice. So I had the DVD.
Yes.
I watched What the Bleep Do We Know, and hot tears were just constantly coming out of my eyes the entire time. And then when I think it was like around 11 at night, I finished watching it and I immediately hit play again. I had to watch it twice. Like, it was hitting me so hard. I was ready to receive that information. So I watched What the Bleep twice in a row. And what I got, because I felt so stuck. I felt so stuck in the broken identity of the diagnosis, of all the diagnosis that I had been given. And I had taken that on as my identity, and I'd taken on this world of suffering as my only truth. And by the time I was done watching What the Bleep Do We Know twice, I got that I can choose a different reality, different from the reality I was living in. And so that moment of shifting my mindset, the very next morning, everything began to fall into place. I was applying for a loan, and it wasn't looking like it was a loan that was going to help me to get pay for the trainings to start this as a business, to become an LP trainer. And it was a no the day before. I shifted my mindset. That next morning I got a phone call. It was a yes. And it was like one piece after another. Everything, the housing, because I had to move to the States over the summer to do all these trainings, that came into place. The transportation came to be like, everything just started like clicking. Everything started clicking because my belief system was that it was 100% possible. But I went from this desperation in my mind that like none of it's possible to it 100% is possible. And so that mindset thing, you have to have the mindset first. You have to envision yourself succeeding first, and then take the actionable steps. But I love that you talk about, you got to be present and open to the flow, and take breaths, slow things down so that you can begin to identify the negative self-talk that you might be believing is true, but it's not. And then you have to get that you're not broken, that you are not your diagnosis, and that you can break free from that. And because I got that, my mindset, I all of a sudden shifted and went, wow, I am not these things. This is not my box anymore. That I was able to then take the actionable steps to heal my body. And now I no longer have any of those issues. But I wouldn't have even taken the actual steps had I not started with my mindset.
Yeah, I agree with you. The mindset is key. And it continues to be key because it is a self-mastery with your mindset. And it's like there is a way of emphasizing the mindset, because it's not the only thing, because you can have an excellent mindset and then it still doesn't shift. And then you're like, well, what's wrong with my mindset? How come it's not shifting? It's because there's stuff in your subconscious that needs listening to. So there's the listening piece is really important. So I just wanted to raise that up, the listening piece, because sometimes the stuff that's getting in your way is stuff that you inherited from your ancestry that you might not have even known those people. And it's in your ancestry. It's a repeating pattern. We all know that we have repeating patterns in our own lives, but they also go across ancestry, across generations. So some of this stuff is beyond you. And so that's why it's important to get really good at listening inside and discerning and opening up to the possibilities of all the things it could be that, that's keeping you where you are, so that you can really shift it, like absolutely stop the pattern. Because like you said, what you did that day, that was enough for you. There wasn't anything else in the way. And so your very clear decision stopped the pattern for you in that day. And bam, it was one moment. And then you started recovering and going on your way. That can happen with everything. So we just have to realize that this is a puzzle. So it's like you slipped into a thumbprint suit that had all these little hidden gems and things, like a video game, and you have to find it all. Well, some of it's going to be easy to find and some of it's going to be really hard to find depending on your level of mastery. So don't give up the game. Like, keep playing the game and realize that the object of the game is to get up the pyramid. So Maslow's hierarchy of need, like hanging out on the bottom row on survival, that's not the goal of the game. Like, the goal of the game is to climb the mountain. The goal of the game is to get all the way to the top of the pyramid of self-actualization. That's the goal of the game. And it's possible for everybody on the planet. What you need is support. It's really helpful to have the help of people like Ashley. That's why it's great you guys are listening to the show, and every week you're getting filled up with beautiful insights that help you on your journey up the mountain, up the pyramid. And keep doing that. And keep taking the steps. I mean, you got to keep taking the steps and solving the puzzle. If you get a little discouraged, it's fine to have a timeout and get frustrated and have a temper tantrum. That's all good. We're human. We're going to get frustrated. But then, practice the self-mastery. Practice your mental mastery. Practice your emotional mastery. Practice your spiritual mastery. Practice all these things and pull yourself up the mountain and give yourself support, because we are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most, right? So hang out with different people. Hang out with people that have gotten up further up the mountain than you. And their collective energy is going to lift you up, that's going to bring you up. And so circling back to that conversation around, what do you do with your family? Well, what do you do with your family if they want to keep you stuck in the old pattern? Like, if the only way your family will love you is if you go along with being the one who's broken and wrong, well, I think you need a new family for now. Like, you need to find your home in community of people that can see the beauty that you are. Because when you feel like you've got this diagnosis and your life is stuck and everything's going wrong, and nobody in your current environment is supporting you, they're all kind of keeping you stuck in that story of you've got to put yourself outside of your condition. Like, you've got to change fish tanks. Like, get out of that stinky water fish tank and like hop on over to the next one where the water's clean, and start hanging out with different people that can show you different aspects of yourself. And then when you're really strong in your new identity, and I would like to say when you're really strong in your soul, eventually, it takes a little while to get there, but when you're really self-actualized, you can be around anybody and it won't matter. You can really flex that muscle of being you, being authentically you around everybody, and just letting everybody have their own opinion. It doesn't matter what they think. It won't matter to you anymore. You can love them anyway. You can love them no matter what they say or think or do about you. You can get to that place. But along the journey, you need to give yourself spaces for incubation space where you can really percolate in the new energy and get strong in the new energy, so that you can find your voice and find your truth inside of you without all those old stories. If you get re-triggered into old stories, if you keep putting yourself in the old environment, it's really hard to break free of it. It's hard to get in the new energy when you keep putting yourself in the old energy. So for a little while, it's helpful to, incubate someplace positive to get filled up with good energy. And then it's good to go back and flex the muscle, because when you're stronger and you know who you are more, then you can make it even stronger by putting yourself in the challenge again. So you get strong again there. And then you know where you got to do your work. So I call that plugging up the holes. Like, once you get your cup full enough, you can start to see like where are the leaks in my ship. You can start plugging them up. So
take yourself out of the bad environment, put yourself in a really positive environment, surround yourself with a new community that's very positive, that sees you as the person you really are inside without all the story.
Yes.
And then once you've really strengthened this resolve within you, that you have shed, you've healed and shed a lot of the old, that you've become the person you know you are deep inside, you're more authentically you, then go back to the old environment in order to see what gets triggered, in order to see what
Yes.
you can heal, because you go back when you're strong enough to be able to be unshakable. And then start, as you then look, oh wow, they triggered me here, this is, I gotta work on this, not a point of blaming them, like they did it to
No.
me, but a point of, oh wow, that was a button for me, I need to work on that. But while you're doing that, you can also transmute, begin to work on, and see if you can start to create new healthy relationships with those people in your life, and maybe they'll be ready, to relate to you as the authentic person you are, instead of your old story. And it does take
Yeah,
enforcing boundaries.
it does. It takes boundaries, and also there's a guilty little secret that we end up having to admit to ourselves, which is that we're also holding them in a story about who they are too.
Yes,
So
yes.
we have to let go of that too.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. When I heard that Carl Jung, and this is a abbreviation of one of his quotes, but that we marry our unconscious mind and project onto them all of our unconscious, unresolved material. And when I got that, I had to repeat it over and over and over. It hit me like so deeply, that all the while I've been pointing my finger at everyone else going, you don't get me, you don't get me, you don't see the authentic me. And I'm like, holy crow, I don't see the authentic them. I don't, like, we'll never actually know who our husband is, or who our mom is, or who our sister is. We never will actually know, because we are projecting onto them all of our stuff and our beliefs about them. And so there's a bit
And
of,
our memories.
yeah, and we
Our
have to
memories are
forgive.
stories.
Right. All of our memories and the stories,
They're
which,
stories.
right. So we can be forgiving in that aspect, and we can go, okay, maybe I can be a bit more gentle with the people in my life that have been triggering me, realizing that, or being I've been upset with people in my life because they're not seeing who I really am, but at the same time I haven't been seeing who they really are. So it is a two-way street.
Yeah, and I like the thumbprint suit analogy that I got from My Higher Intelligence, because it really does explain a lot. I mean, if you're inside a thumbprint suit that has its own perspectives and perceptual windows through which you experience life, and ancestral patterns and all this information about your soul, and it's unique, right? The thumbprint, there's no two thumbprints alike. So we might have a little overlap in our Venn diagrams, but we're really never going to understand each other, like, ever. We will understand overlapping pieces and feel really good about that, and then we have, like, yay, somebody understands me, for like 10 minutes, and then they say something that is totally not aligned with us, and then we get all upset, like, oh no, you're one of them. So really, like, I mean, we're all unique. That's the thing, is we're built that way. We're all pieces of the rainbow. If you think about the rainbow, look how many dots, like infinite numbers of dots, are available on the rainbow, right? On the spectrum, like infinite number of dots. And so maybe, dots on the opposite sides of the spectrum, they don't get along very well because they don't share a whole lot in common, but they're all part of the same rainbow. So I love that too. So, think about your thumbprint. Think about, well, they're not inside my thumbprint suit. They totally don't understand me. So how can they tell me a story about me that's more accurate than my story about me? Because I'm the one that's in here all the time listening to everything. So I think I know what's true for me. I'm the only one in here as far as I know.
Can you give us, are there any steps that you can give us around really seeing? It's sort of like, it's hard when you're in it, it's hard to see it, but then all of a sudden you get it. Like all of a sudden you go, wow, I see it. Like, so are there any steps or advice or homework you can give us so that we can start to see the limiting story that we've come up with ourselves, that this box that we've created, like the idea that we're broken, and be able to see it and go, oh wow, this isn't actually my entire reality, that it's actually just it's a made up. I made it up in my head. It's not real. I'm not actually broken. I I do have a chance to be he, someone who is healthy, someone who is whole.
Yeah. So, what I like to do is I do think journaling is really helpful because you get to see it in print. Thoughts in your mind, they drift by really fast, and the sneaky ones slide under the surface before you can hook them back. The ones that are really damaging are the ones that hide in the dark waters. So, whenever you grab a hold of one, immediately write it down. And then that way you can explore it with your conscious mind because that's really the goal. We want to explore with our conscious mind. So, if you've ever driven someplace that you often go, and then you end up there, and then you're wondering, how did I get here? Oh my goodness, I didn't remember even driving here. That's because your unconscious mind took over for you. Well, your unconscious mind takes over for you in a lot of things. Like your unconscious mind takes over for you in the story you tell about yourself. When you meet somebody new, the story you tell, or like on these broadcasts, such a great experience because I get asked the same questions a lot of times. Well, what's your history? What's your story in a nutshell? So what I like to do now is I like to play around and tell it different every time. So I have this little task for myself, or a little game or a challenge I give myself to tell the story different. So you could try that. You could say, well, I notice I'm telling that same story. And right in the middle of the sentence, you could say, excuse me, I'd like to start over. I'm going to tell a different story. And right then and there, you tell a different story. You tell it differently. So it's a process. It takes a lot of self-mastery and self-awareness, and it takes time, but you can whittle down these pieces and become aware of what's in the background. And like Ashley and I really recommend doing some alternative practices, like working with energy if you've never tried that. Branch outside and see if you can't shift it in a different way that you never expected. So try like a lot of different things. Straight yes. There's like actually a challenge where you say yes to everything. Somebody invites you to something, you say yes. I think that's a great one, because it gets you outside of your box of what will work and what won't work. It's like you'll just say yes to everything and you'll find out. And think about it like an experiment. I think what's really challenging with things like diets is that we say, well, forever I'm going to have no more dessert. Well, that doesn't work very well. So it's easier to say, I'm going to run an experiment, and for 1 week I'm not going to have dessert, and I'm going to see what it feels like. How does my body feel? How does my mind feel? And I'm going to do an honest assessment of myself before and after, and I'm going to see what the results are. And if I get a beneficial result, I will contemplate if I want to run the experiment longer. So it's just a way of liberating yourself from too rigid of a structure with your goals and plans on what you want to achieve in your life. Like, be a little more playful with it. Give yourself some space and grace.
Beautiful, brilliant. Now, you're the founder of Skills Not Pills movement. What is that?
Well, it's a movement that I started because I had experienced, psychotherapy, psychotropic pills in order to make me not feel, which then were supposed to fix me, but actually, all the emotions that I was feeling in my life were stuffed under there. It's just that I was unaware of them. So it just sort of suppressed the emotional experience underneath my awareness. And when I finally came out of that fog, I had a lot of backed up, pent up emotional energy to process. And I still had the diagnosis, right? So I thought, well, this doesn't really work for me anyway. And everyone has to decide for themselves. And of course, you're encouraged to, consult with a doctor. But my idea was, why can't we share with people alternatives to traditional Western medicine? Why can't we share with people that energy healing is a thing and that you could shift the energy of something and it might actually just go away? I mean, why can't we share with people NLP? Why can't we share all these alternative modalities with people so that their first solution isn't getting a pill? Maybe their last solution is to get a pill. Maybe there's like a whole other range of options before you get the pill. Maybe that's not number one. Maybe it's number like 100 thing you try. So I'm just suggesting we flip it and we stop going to the pill first because it's easy and convenient, because in the long run, it really isn't. Just like littering seems easy and convenient, but in the long run, we have to clean up the mess on our planet. So I think that the whole goal with Skills Not Pills is to inspire people that there's a whole lot of other ways of going about your life challenges than just taking a pill.
Right. And there's times when we want them to temporarily take it, like if there's a difference between being suicidal or going off the, if a pill can help someone just get stable, we want that. It's not that we're saying never no pills. Like there's times when medication can be life-saving. We always want people to be healthy. The problem is 90 something percent of the time, medication is it's overprescribed. It's given for everything. I remember my friend had a panic attack, went to the hospital because she didn't know what was wrong with her. And they sent her home with an anti-anxiety medication. It's like, they didn't do any tests. She didn't even know it was a panic attack. She's like, my heart's pounding. I feel like I'm going to faint. I don't know what's wrong with me. And she was very healthy girl. And we were like maybe 19 at the time. And she goes to the hospital thinking she's having a heart attack. And they just send her home with anti-anxiety meds. Like, is that really helpful? Is that really helpful to, to just, here, take some meds, you'll be fine. Just, numb those feelings, you'll be fine. So you're saying that a lot of the time, and I've actually done a lot of interviews. If you listeners can go to learntohealth.com and search ADHD. There's some interviews I've done where guests have shared that ADHD meds just made it much worse. They gave them a lot of symptoms. They didn't get side effects, and they didn't get to heal it. They didn't get to work on it. And they actually chose to get off of them and then work on it and figure out how to heal. So I love that you bring this up. I love that you're an advocate for helping people to gain more skills, more life skills, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, so they can really actualize the beings that they are inside, and let go of the stories and the limitations that have been imposed upon them, or self-imposed, I should say. Kerri Hummingbird, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Your website is kerrihummingbird.com, and you have a free gift, Love Mastery game that you're giving us. Listeners can go to kerrihummingbird.com/play for that. Is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up today's interview?
Yes, it's just, I really encourage everybody to take a look at your thumbprint every day and remind yourself that you are living in a unique puzzle that was built just for you. And if you don't get curious about it and start discovering all about it inside of you, it'll never go discovered. It'll be just, the lost puzzle that never got solved. So it's really up to each one of us to solve that puzzle that we are, that life plan, that thumbprint suit, and figure out everything about it. Because, look at Ashley's life, so amazing. You went through all that journey in my life. I mean, on the other side of what you think is horrible is actually like an incredible journey of discovery. So I just welcome everybody to take that journey for themselves.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kerri.
Thank you.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN, and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach, and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author. You can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people. Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.